So we know that Paul was arrested. Paul was taken to Rome, where he was put in not house arrest, but he was put into a dark, cold, small prison cell, basically awaiting his execution. During this time, we already mentioned, the Roman Empire is starting to struggle. Rebellions are going on in Britannica, England, and then rebellion starts in Judea, in Palestine, in what we know as Israel. In 66 AD, one of the Roman leaders in Palestine decided that the Jews owed back taxes. So he went into the temple, raided the temple and the temple's treasury, and took the money, took the gold, took the temple items in payment for back taxes. Well, that of course meant the Romans had invaded, had defiled the Jewish temple, and in Jerusalem a major riot erupted. At the same time, in the town of Caesarea, the Jews and the Syrians, who were both living side by side, started to fight. And there was a major riot in Caesarea, which then spread to the other surrounding cities in Palestine. Well, it got worse and it got worse. And at a little bit later, one of the other Roman leaders decided that as a show of personal authority and force, he was going to force the Jews to stop sacrificing in the temple. And that was the end of it for the Jews. When they were told that not only did they have to give up their temple money and all of the things that were a part of the temple, but they also had to stop their Jewish sacrifices, the Jews across Palestine went into a full-scale revolt against the Roman Empire. The Romans sent in one army that was defeated by the Jews, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. So the Romans then sent in a guy by the name of General Vespasian. Vespasian was one of their top generals, and he took in a huge portion. At the end of the time, it was a full 1/4 of the entire Roman military was in Palestine, putting down this revolt against the Jews. Remember when we talked about Roman peace a number of class sessions ago? Remember one way the Romans kept the peace? They had these roads all over Rome that were designed to allow their military to move rapidly to crush rebellion. That's what they did with the Jews. They sent Vespasian in, they sent their military from all around the empire, and the idea was to completely crush this Jewish rebellion. Well, that was about the year 67, which was the same year that Paul wrote the letter 2 Timothy. So while the Jewish people are in full-scale rebellion in Palestine, Paul is in jail awaiting his execution and writes 2 Timothy. This is the letter where we know it has changed tenor. This is the letter where he is expecting his execution. He is lonely. He says, "Come and visit me." He's cold. He says, "Please bring the jacket, the cloak that I left." This is where he says things like, "I've run the race. I've fought the fight." He fully expects at this point that he is finished. And not long after 2 Timothy was written, Paul, in fact, was executed. Remember, he was a Roman citizen. So while most of the Christians at that point were crucified, they were thrown to the lions in the Colosseums, they were tortured, as a Roman citizen, the only appropriate execution for Paul was beheading. So history tells us he was taken outside the city of Rome and he was beheaded, as would have been appropriate for a Roman citizen who had committed capital crimes. Well, shortly after that, the year 69, Nero committed suicide. Vespasian, the general who was putting down the rebellion in Palestine and Jerusalem, He went rushing back to Rome. Vespasian became the new Roman emperor. And this is the point where now 25% of the Roman military is in Palestine. They crush the revolt. They kill tens of thousands of Jews. They tear the walls of Jerusalem down. They break into the city. And on August 28th of the year 70, they destroy the temple. Scattered resistance continued out in the wilderness, but basically when the temple was destroyed in the year 70, that ended the Jewish rebellion. And that was kind of the punctuation mark with the persecution of the Christians, because the Romans considered these much the same. Despite the persecution, this is the end of Paul and his ministry, but it's really, in a sense, the beginning of the church. Because despite the persecution, despite the executions, despite all of the things that were happening, the church grew throughout the empire, and it strengthened, and it continued until several hundred years later, about 300 actually, the Roman Emperor Constantine put his faith in Christ and reversed all of the policies prior to that. Christianity actually became the official religion of the Roman Empire. Now, initially, that was a good thing. It stopped persecution. It allowed people to openly worship. Churches were built around the empire. Things happened. It grew. Eventually, which is for a different class completely someday, eventually, government sponsorship of Christianity became Christianity's downfall, because Christianity slowly in the Roman Empire became more political than faith-based. With that, we end the class. Thank you for watching. We hope you learned, we hope you're growing, and we hope you'll share this with others who need the same information. Thanks again.